Okay, welcome team. Welcome to another training. Welcome to you tonight. Tonight we're going to be covering some fundamentals. Of course, we've announced, if you have not seen the recording or we're not on the live launch event the other day, or you have folks on your team that have not been made aware or have got up to speed yet, I would really encourage you and them to review that and invite everybody on their team so they at least are aware of what the phase we are at. Because now we've made that announcement, in the next week and a half, we will be going officially live. And this coming Friday, you do not want to miss this call that we will be announcing, I would say, probably two of the biggest corporate promotions I've ever been privileged to be part of. So I'm very excited, and only today did we get notified by Steve Morley that the company has approved what we asked for, and we're going to be sharing that on Friday with you. So we are moving into the launch of the influencer stage. As I said through that training with Nigel and Sue and Steve Morley and Kenny the other day, is nothing changes in regards to, we're still going to be focusing on gathering customers. We'll still be building our business the way we've been building. But now we really have to go into a recruitment drive over the next 90 to 180 days. 90 days into the convention and 90 days out of the convention to take that momentum into a sort of a hyperdrive for the UK market. So what we're going to do is strip it all the way down. And Nigel has been working with Sue on some of the content for tonight. And we're going to really be touching on the importance of how we contact invited. Now, again, this is going to be an ongoing, evolving aspect. And a lot of this is really going to be broken down in a 4-hour session this Sunday in Arundel. And of course, if those who have downloaded or gone to their Google Calendar, all the details of all the events up between now and the end of May are already in the calendar. So with that said, I'm going to hand over to Nigel because he's going to be delivering the message tonight. But I want you to position this in one way. Right now, you need to be thinking your level and above. You're putting your board of directors together. And who is it that you want around your board of directors? Now, here is the caveat. They've got to be coachable. They've got to be coachable. Because we're going to have a guest speaker on our very first influencer webinar on Monday. And one of the things that we've all been discussing, and this individual is head of corporate, this individual has run this play. And in one of his messages, he said, if you try to run your own play outside of the play, you won't get the support that you need. Very simply because our time's going to be consumed making sure that we deliver the numbers and your success stories in the next 90 days. So it's important to take on board what Nigel's going to be sharing with you this evening. And of course, it's about practicing. It's all about continually doing this consistently over a period of time. But we just want to give you some sort of foundational work to work with and start working alongside your existing actively plugged in upline who's going to be running the play with you. So with that said, Nigel, I'm going to hand over to you. Appreciate all the time and effort that you spent today making sure these slides were ready for this evening. And I'm going to mute myself and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dave. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad you've taken the time to do this. Excuse me. I'm going to start out by a bit of positioning, really, because this is what I'm going to talk about tonight is rooted in years and years in this industry. And prior to that, in a former life, I used to run a telemarketing agency. I didn't only run it, I started it from scratch. There were just the two of us. We picked the phone up and called people. That's what we did. And we built that into a significant player in the telemarketing industry in the UK. I ultimately sold it. Probably the worst business decision I ever took because I did it for the wrong reasons, but that's another story entirely. What it taught me, though, is how to pick that instrument up, which to a lot of people appears to weigh about 10 tons. There's an awful lot of call reluctance in picking up the phone. That's down to a number of things. I'm not going to go into the detail of that tonight. I'm going to cover that a little bit more heavily on Sunday. But what I want to talk about really tonight is just the very fundamentals of what we have to do in order to drive the volume that we require ultimately out of sales, but fundamentally the contacts that are necessary to go through the averages. Because at the end of the day, this is a numbers game. It's how do you assess your average in relation to your contacts and then the successes you get from them. And that's always a ratio in some way or another. It might be 1 in 10, it might be 1 in 5, it might be 1 in 20. It doesn't actually matter unless you find out what it is. And for those of you who were at Heathrow, whenever it was, last Sunday or the Sunday before, can't remember, will recognize that one of the things that's most important here is the follow-up aspect of it. People give up too soon. So just to underline what I'm going to talk about tonight, it's based on the principle in part that you are willing to follow up and follow up and follow up. That doesn't mean badger people. What it means is simply prompting people. Marco will tell you his story about how he connected with Dave and the length of time it took him to actually get to the point where Dave would take a look. Now, you've got to say Dave is an influencer. By any stretch of the imagination, he's an influencer. And change only happens when circumstances change. Let me put that into context. Let's say one of your pals is the director of a company, the managing director's position is coming up and he's expecting to be able to go for that. He's in competition with another member of the board. He doesn't get it. Do you think he's ready for change? Well, the answer is very simply yes, of course he is, because he's not got the role he wanted. The other guy, if you approach him and say, are you ready for a change? Definitely isn't. He's going to shoehorn himself into that role and focus in upon it. So timing is always important for anyone, especially in our industry. People looking for that change at whatever point in their life they actually start to focus on it. So let's just focus in a little bit more heavily on your role. This is really a key moment in time. I find it difficult to understand quite how I've arrived where I have in relation to where Zinzino is at this moment in time. Many years ago, Sue and I essentially joined another company with whom we remained for over 19 years, who are in exactly the same positions Zinzino are in right now. They were doing in those days about $40 million a year. Zinzino is doing about 60 million pounds a year right now. Big ambitions, wanting to expand, really focused, driven outfit with a great product. Excuse me. And we got in at that moment in time, and really the rest was history, because we didn't actually look back in terms of the development that went on, the growth that we achieved was as a consequence of hitting the right time with the right product, and we were in the right place. That's where you are. That's where we are. I'm grateful to say we are in exactly the right moment. This is a key in time. Now's the time to take advantage of it. So you are in this unique small group. I don't know how many are on tonight. It's not a huge number. But listen, this is the core of what's going to be developed out of the UK market. And that makes me, in a way, more excited. In another way, a little bit daunted, because there's a lot of work to do. But it also means that many of the people who are taking part right now are really going to shine throughout this. And growth will come faster than you can realize once it really starts to take off. Take time to build that momentum, but when it does, it'll surprise you. So what I'm really driving at is everyone here, including me, has the potential to realize your why, whatever that is. If you don't know what it is, focus in on what makes you happy, because ultimately that's what's driving you fundamentally, subconsciously. So focus on your why, because the potential is here to deliver on that. And the only thing you need to become is a really great inviter, understanding the process, doing it again and again and again. And it's like we always used to say when we brought on a new guy into the office, there would be the mumbling and the stumbling for a while. We all go through that as we get comfortable with the words we have to say, the order in which we have to say them, and the results that come as a consequence of them. That takes a little bit of time and practice. And there's nothing like practice to get you to the point where you become polished. It's the same in any business. This is a learned skill. And the way we set this up is, or the way we're saying we should all do this is, Don't do it on your own. Essentially, this is a team effort. It's you and the upline, and I'll share with you the details of that in a second. The targets we're aiming at right now, we're in the influencer stage. We're looking for leverage. We're actually looking for people who have drive, ambition, and not so much necessarily skills, but the attitude of wanting to change and succeed. Those people can become key influencers because they'll be driven enough to go out and share this opportunity with people in ways which will generate new partners. So, what do we do? Well, I'm going to take you back to the Express Start booklet. All of you are current partners. You should all have this booklet. It should sit on your table every day in, day out, and become very dog-eared very quickly, because it is the blueprint for what we have to do here. And the play that we're running now is all within that. And it teaches us that actually essentially it's all about the inviting. So use the system. It's like Dave was saying a moment ago, if you're not using the system and you want to run your own system, that's fine, but the rest of us aren't going to be doing that. And the way this system teaches you is to make the list. Now, my many years of experience in all this has seen huge numbers of people who come into organizations who simply, either they never do this, or if they do this, they keep it to themselves, try and do it themselves, and don't have the courage to share it with the upline. And this is a must. And it's not because the upline wants to steal your list, sponsor your people for himself, or anything like that. It's all to essentially maximize the opportunity for you in that list. Now, there is a selfish motive, of course, because by helping you to succeed with that, he or she helps themselves as well. But what more importantly happens here is that you get duplication, and that's the key to leverage. Because if you've got lots of people doing the same thing, then you get an accumulation, a geometric progression of results. Because that's the way this business works. It's the way networking works. You know, one person, two people you've sponsored leads to 4, leads to 8, leads to 16. There's the geometric starting to happen. And there comes a point at which it takes on a life of its own. And what we say right through all this, what I say to everyone that I sponsor, we sponsor, is make your list, share it with me, and we'll do the work together. Because what I don't want them doing is burning through their contact list in a way which essentially blows them out. Because then they stop, the line stops, it brings into perceptually that their impression of what they're involved in is something that doesn't work. And actually it's not because they couldn't make it work, it's that they didn't learn the lesson. And that's what Dave meant right at the beginning of this about being teachable. I'm teachable. Listen, I use Dave to do calls with me. And why do I do that? Because he's an unimpeachable third party. He's someone that I can bring in and reinforce what is actually on offer here without them having the perception of who I am. Because let's look at it like this. Your list of people, the people you know well, have an impression of you. They have a judgment of you, whether it's right or wrong. They have positioned you in some way or another in their thinking about who you are, what you stand for, what you can and can't do, whether you're successful or not, etc. All those things run through the mind when you start to talk. When someone says, oh, so-and-so, how do you get on with that? Or with him? They don't know that about me. They don't know that about Dave. They don't know that about Sue. All they know is that you know me. And all I do is then explain the same thing you would do, but because I'm a third party, it becomes, they can only judge the information. They can judge me, I guess, and they ultimately will form an impression, but they judge the information first because that's what the first impression is of what I'm saying. But I come with your credibility, and that's the key thing here. This is the secret to keep to leverage. So we're going to talk a lot more about contacting and inviting using the upline, and I'll keep going with that in a second. First of all, write the list. Use your memory. Use the memory jogger. It's on page 9 in the booklet. There it is. There's the template for using it. It's really simple. What we're doing is we're not actually we're not judging whether someone will be good at this, not good at this. He's too successful. She's too busy. We don't want any of that. It's our job to ask. it's our job to expose this to them in a way which gets a yes, a no, or not for now. And I'll come on to what that really means in a minute. So use your phone contacts. Everyone's got a mobile now. Everyone's got a smartphone of some sort. You've probably got 400 or 500 names in your contact list, maybe even more than that, many of whom you don't know who they are anymore because they're kind of outside of the normal circle. But this is not a discrimination of who you're targeting specifically to become part of your organization. When you run out of them, you're not going to bother with anybody else. This is just a memory dump. And we all know 150 people well. That's not me talking, that's Robin Dunbar, and this is his analysis. And this isn't speculation either. This has been done, this has been arrived at over many years of research, and validated, actually, strangely enough, through Facebook and the way the Facebook connections work. So we all know 5 people very closely, 5 good friends, the ones that you could count on for pretty much anything. 15 are in your close group. 50 are in your active network, those that you connect with on a regular basis. And 150 are those that you know in a wider circle. They did a study in the States, and it's actually 600 people that they would count as people they could actually connect with. Maybe that's why the US or uses network marketing more than we do. But actually, when you boil it out into the total number of connections we have, it'll be around 15 or 1600. So we all have, through this, access to everybody in the world. You look at the way the math works, and you will see that we can reach, within 4 or 5 connections, anybody on the planet. So you have in your hands the potential to connect with as big a network as you want. What you have to have is your willingness to share your list in a way which will get to the outcomes that are possible. And the outcomes become often confused when you try and do it on your own, especially without the right levels of knowledge and the right levels of technique. And that's why it's important to use Upline in how to do this properly. So what I'm saying here is use us, use Dave, use me, use whoever. You know, those of us who've got experience in this arena are here to help. We're all in this together. I know that's perhaps David Cameron's echo coming down. That's not me being flippant. That's actually saying this quite deliberately, because that's how success starts to happen. So, excuse me, this is by the way, I'll give everyone these slides. So, because there is some stuff in here you may not have, and rather than scribbling or taking pictures of it, I'll send them all to you. If you drop me a quick line, if you haven't got my email address, send it to, make a note if you haven't got it, nboothnote@gmail.com, and I'll send you a copy of the whole lot. This is just a memory jogger that we put together some years ago to actually prompt you to think of people that you do know, but you'd forgotten about. Because it's funny how memory works. You know, it's only probably the 50 or so that you can instantly recall. But actually, you know, someone else will pop in your head each day, and you gradually write them out. This helps to do that. So we're talking about professionals, employment, college, university. Perhaps you've got a hobby or a sport that you know well, people well in it. Public service, charitable interests, own house, etc., etc. I won't bore you with the details too much, because I'll let you have that. Second page of this, we're getting to different levels of connection now, which is how that bigger number begins to take place. Because you know the guy in the supermarket. If you shop at one locally regularly, you probably know the guy behind the counter, especially if it's a small one. So it's people like that as you work your way through it. And so this just prompts you to help find connections. We know, I guess we know we know some really, really successful networkers, some of whom are totally focused on the connection. We had dinner with some friends who are networkers not very long ago, and the woman of the partnership disappeared, went off to the loo, and we thought 10 minutes later, well, she's been gone a long time, what's going on here? And she came back having got the phone number of someone she'd met in the loo and another person whose table she passed. She's an absolute, I hesitate to use the word animal, but that's all she does. That's what she does. She gathers names. And it's a skill that she actually loves doing it. That's why she's good at it. So, but what that's led to is the huge networks because of it. So what I'm saying here is, look, write out your network, get it done. Plan who you're going to contact when you want to contact them with your upline. And if you learn this lesson well, it really does form the basis of what you will teach your own partners and in turn theirs. That's how the duplication happens. And this is the only secret to building a massive network. And in this phase of development, doing it fast, because we've got lots of exciting things going on. There's lots of stuff we can offer people coming into the program, apart from the growth that's going to come from this that will generate large potential incomes for people as they move forward. So let's get into a bit of detail as we do this. Don't do the contacting of the list on your own until you've been through a few together, because once you've got the basis of the way to say it and what to say, then it becomes easier and easier and easier, and you can do this stuff on your own. But initially, I always describe this as earning while you learn, because the burden of the real effort is taken by it's taken within. Someone's unmuted. Jerry, it's you, I think. Could you mute yourself, please? But even if you are an experienced, thank you, even if you are an experienced networker or a salesperson with cold calling skills, work through your list with your upline to arrange the times to be able to do three-way calls or Zoom calls together. This is it's really important. Again, this three-way partnership makes it such a powerful combination. You get that unimpeachability in the upline, and the message gets received in the right way rather than being colored by their perception of who you are. You also get your upline's commitment to helping you, because again, I can't count the number of times I've offered help to people and never heard from them. And every time I've met them, I've continued to offer the same levels of help. And they're just, I don't know whether they think it's because they don't want to bother me or I'd be putting myself out. It's always done with the intention of helping them to do the job. It's our job to help you do the job, and we're happy to do. I'm certainly happy to do that. It's one of the things I'm quite good at. So it's nice to be able to do that job and help someone to learn how to do it for themselves as well. So you benefit from earning while you learn, and your prospects. This is the key thing, because there's this exchange of energy that goes on between you and the person we're communicating with, and me as an individual as well. They subliminally realize they don't actually have to do the work themselves because it's being done on their behalf. The only part of the work that needs to be done is the inviting. Like I said right at the beginning, the only thing you have to learn actually is to become a good inviter. Learn that skill, everything else will follow. Because doing this on your own at the end of the day can't be duplicated. Let's just explore that for a second. Do you know, in terms of the workforce, only 3% of people are involved in any form of sales in a formal context. That's a formal way of people choosing to actually go out and earn a living by connecting with others. And it's done because they love the process. 97% of people, of which a lot of people who come into networking are in that group, have never been in sales. They don't want to be in sales. They don't want to be perceived as a salesperson, and they'd rather die than stand up in front of a group and talk to them. That's a battle that we have to live with in terms of helping people to overcome that fear in a way which makes it simple and easy. This is the best way to do that, because we're taking on the burden of that connection process. And this part is then duplicatable, because anybody coming in and say, well, I could do that. I could again invite my friend to talk to Nigel. Why not? That wouldn't be difficult, and it isn't difficult. But what they have to do is have the willingness to do it, and that's the key point. And this lesson is something that we all really need to take on board. So the purpose when we're contacting someone is not to sell the deal over the phone. It's simply to get an agreement to view or view something, a presentation, a link, or get a physical presentation. And we want to qualify and gain a commitment to that step. That's it. And I'll cover what happens when someone says, Well, what is it? In a minute, and explain the process that we go through in order to make that, to not so much avoid that question, but to treat it correctly. The object of this first call is simply to set up a time to connect with someone with a Zoom influencer recording so that they can see what we've already done and what we're looking for, or a live Zoom call with the upline. Now, be businesslike here, because you made a decision to join for your reasons. They'll do the same if they decide, why did I put this in? Principally because very often people, when they first come into networking, they take a posture of almost being a bit of a supplicant, because they see themselves as selling to somebody. And again, it goes back to this subconscious thing about not wanting to be seen that way. And actually, that's a negative that transmits energetically through your posture and what you say to people. And I've seen it happen very often, where people get knocked off track very, very quickly because they get gratuitously criticized for approaching people with what's perceived as something that's not necessarily legitimate, because of what they say and how they say it, and their inherent fear of what they're doing, because they're not actually in tune with the whole business model yet. Another reason, fundamental reason, to use the upline. So I'm saying adopt the right posture. You're looking for business partners, not dream stealers or naysayers. So if someone says, if someone is gratuitously rude to you about what you're doing, that's fine. Just move on. It's only a result. It's not condemning you to being a failure, unless you choose to accept what they say rather than the reasons why you joined. So it's making sure you understand the reason why you're doing it, and reconnecting with your why when you start. So let's get into the goal of the call. It's only to qualify them in or qualify them out. We're looking to expose them to more information. They're primarily to see if someone's looking. Go back to my example earlier. If the guy, you're approaching the guy who's just been promoted, he's not ready for a change. You talk to the guy who's just been passed over for a promotion, he's probably ready for change. Everybody comes into that category at some time. Dave came into that category I think he'll tell you at the end, I'm sure, but it was maybe even a couple of years after Marco first suggested it. What Marco did was what most people don't. He stayed in touch, and every few months picked up the phone and said, "Are you ready to look yet?" And that was it. So it was just a gentle nudging, re-exposure process. And eventually people's circumstances change in ways where they say, "Yeah, I'll have a look." Because then they're ready for it, whatever it might be. And what we're doing is gaining a commitment to the next step. Yes or no to that. That's it. It doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter whether it's a yes or a no. We'd all love yeses all the time. Doesn't happen. You can't have two sides of a coin. Sorry, you can't have one side of a coin. You have to have two. One's a yes, one's a no. You're going to get both. You flip a coin, you're going to come up heads sometimes and tails others. That's what this is like. And that's the way you need to think about it in terms of treatment. Some of the people you know would be brilliant at this industry don't want to know. And they don't want to know because their circumstances, they don't want change at that moment. Some people will surprise you because they'll take a look when you think they wouldn't. And they may be some of the most successful people you know. So you really don't know. The only way you find out is to contact everybody and establish their position at that time. So my point really to summarize this part of it is write your list. Don't discriminate. Just dump your memory. Share it with your upline. Then go through that list in a way which targets certain individuals. They'll be probably your 15 core group to begin with. And then we work our way through those and then work through the others. And then when and if, and eventually you run out, then we look at ways of increasing that number in other ways, which is something we'll come on to in another session. The outcome doesn't matter, the numbers do. The outcome is just a result. It's just a result. And what most people start to think is it's a rejection of them. It's not. It's a rejection of the idea, the concept. It's not a rejection of you. We know the idea and the concept works because Zinzino have achieved what they already have. 15 years, they've just broken 60-odd million pounds in turnover. They're not a huge business. That's where the big opportunity is. What's great about them is grown year on year on year on year, profitably, and have set themselves up in infrastructure terms for the next phase of growth, which is what we're involved in. So there's nothing to be ashamed about in relation to your decision to align yourself with Zinzino. It's to be celebrated because it's a ground floor opportunity. So 4 basic simple principles. Understand where they are. Remember, you're suggesting an idea to them. They are where they are at that moment in time. They're either ready for change or they're not ready for change. They may do something, they may not. We also don't know what their future desires are, probably not intimately anyway. Listen for what's meant, not what's said, because often what they say is code for something else. And ask questions. The more questions you ask, the easier it is to understand where they are in their lives. How, when, where, what, why, and who. Those 6. How, when, where, what, why, and who. If in doubt, ask a question. When someone throws a question at you, it's much better not to respond to that, but throw one back at them. Why? Because you need to go on controlling the call. We'll cover some of that on Sunday. Excuse me. Provide feedback and affirm your own understanding of it, because that way round you understand what the next step is, if there is one. So let's get on into talking about calls themselves. We're going to scratch the surface a little bit tonight, but these are simple scripts, and I should make a mention about scripts. They're really call guides. And whatever I give you as a script is simply a guide in terms of structure as to what needs to be said and certain key points within it. Because essentially you've got to say who you are, which is clear. You've got to say why you're calling, what the potential benefit is to them, and what you want to have happen next. And if we can encompass that within the script, the guide, then that's all we need to do in this initial stage. My words are not your words. What I write will not necessarily be what you would write. You simply take the essence of what's being said and put it in your own words as you start to do this on your own. You'll naturally work this out as you go forward. So let's look at each of these in turn. First of all, the friend, someone you know well in your group of 15, excuse me. Clearly, if you haven't spoken to someone for a little while, you're going to cover the niceties first. Hi, how are you doing? How's the family? Blah, blah. And this is also someone you know well. Hi, John. You can essentially just ring them up and say, look, we need to get together. Let's have a coffee. When can you do that? Hi, John. We really need to get together. I have something I'm really excited about, and I must share it with you. Are you free on Wednesday at 4 or 5 for a coffee? Really simple. Keep it simple. And I'll cover what the responses might be in a moment. Or you can get into it in a slightly different way. Hi, John, this is really a business call. I'd like your help with something I'm working on right now. I'm working with a publicly quoted Swedish company who want to launch here in the UK, and they're looking for key business partners. I was surprised and impressed by what's on offer, and I'd like to share that with you. Are you able to do a coffee on, and so on? Always closing there with what I want, which is a meeting. I want to get a meeting of some sort. Now, there are basically 3 responses you can get from that, which we'll cover in a second. If you get a voicemail, leave a message. Mine's really simple. Hi, this is Nigel. Please call me back as soon as you can. I have something I need to share with you that I think you want to know about. Speak soon. That's it. You don't need to start trying to give them War and Peace here. That's not what's necessary. Follow up if they don't respond. And that's part of this process. Remember, this is a nudging process. This is all about process. It's a process, not an event. It's very, very rare to get someone go, hey, I want to sign up. Where do I do it? It just doesn't happen. Well, I say it doesn't happen. In all the years we've been in this industry, I think it's happened to us once. Actually, twice. We used to give away some tapes with some information about product. And we got phoned one day by a guy who bought a car, and a copy of the tape we'd sent out was in the tape player. Now that shows how old it is, because they don't have tapes anymore. And it had our phone number on it, and he picked up the phone and called us because he'd been listening to the tape. And that's in very nearly 30 years of being in this industry. So do not expect people to come charging around your house, banging on the door, say, where do I sign? It doesn't happen often. That's not to say it's impossible. It isn't, because it's happened to us. Make sure you follow up. It's a really key important point here, because you don't burn your list through your list once and stop. You go back and back and back and back and back, because their circumstances change, your success changes, the way they view what's going on, and the growth of the business makes a difference as well, because there's more awareness going on, more awareness developing all the time with more of what you say. Why do you think companies advertise again and again and again and again? They do it because of spaced repetition. They're shifting people from one point to another point by that repetition. The message they're pushing out is there to get people to move from where they are to somewhere the advertiser would like them to be. And that takes perceptual shift and raising of awareness in a way which makes people elect to try something or to move towards it, rather than not moving at all, which is where they are at that moment. We get a lot of non-movers initially, and slowly but surely over time, they begin to shift towards us because of the information and the credibility that we put across in terms of our own personal growth, the company's growth, the product effectiveness, especially in relation to what Zinzino has, and the raising of awareness in a wider context from the fact that from the point of view of the global audience, there's more demand for the change that's happening as a consequence of it. So let's get into the three-way call. Okay, hi John, how are you doing? The reason I called is I've recently been working with a very successful publicly quoted Swedish company who decided to launch products in the UK. They're looking for key people to be a part of that expansion. They specifically need, whatever skills this guy's got, they specifically need, people like you with your outgoing, gregarious personality, whatever it is. It doesn't matter really, but we're just thinking of putting in something that relates to them. And I thought of you. I mentioned you to Dave, who's one of the top people leading this launch, and he'd be very interested in talking with you to see if there's any area of mutual interest. Would you be happy to get together on a Zoom call? That's all we need to say here. We're going to get a yes, a no, or a what is it. Those are the only three answers he can give to that question. Yes, no, what is it? And we'll handle those in a second. So if you use the upline here, they know how to deal with that. I know how to deal with that. The yes is simple. We book an appointment. The no is, and this is what I use. That's fine. I called you because I thought you might be open to looking, but that's okay. Forgive me, but I have a number of calls to make today, whatever it is, because the timing of this is important. So I'll give you a call once I've had once I have the main people in place. In my experience here is that the vast majority, and I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the no's at that point, having said that to them, turn into, well, what is it? What is it? And then I talk to them about this. Well, I really can't explain this over the phone. It's like posting a haircut. And I use that because it's a phrase that Sue came up with many years ago, which works extremely well just to explain the process we're in here. And it can't really be done. I can cover the detail when we meet. Are you okay to meet? If they push really hard, their potential obviously drops, because now we're not in a one-to-one situation and they won't get the energy transfer in the same way. Because at the end of the day, moving someone towards you is about harmonizing your energy. And the receptivity, their receptivity to that is down to the way you communicate with them and the level at which you do that. We'll maybe cover, I probably won't have time on Sunday, but we might cover a bit about the psychology of that and how that works. The potential for them drops, but you can use the presentation link to share the presentation with them. In this instance, if they're a real influencer, the influencer one, but this does demand you to follow up and don't give up, because if there is that basic interest there, at some stage or another, they're going to shift again. So that's how you handle what is it. Cold calling people you don't know. This is just a very quick practitioner example. Hi, my name is Nigel. You don't know me, but I have something that you might find profitable for your practice. I'm working with a 15-year-old Swedish health and wellness company, which is about to start distributing patented products into the UK market. We're holding a series of meetings here, wherever that is, in Manchester, London, whatever, to meet with practitioners who might like to add the product line to their portfolio. I'd like to invite you to meet at, and so on, same close. So I've encapsulated the basis of what I'm looking for within that. This is a harder road. It can be an extremely profitable road, but it takes more time because you're starting from a position of they don't know you, they don't know what you stand for, they don't know Zinzino, they don't know what they stand for, they don't know the product, they don't know the values, they don't know the reputation. There are lots of unknowns. As Donald Rumsfeld said, there are unknown unknowns, there are unknown knowns, and there are unknown unknowns. It's, you know, whatever it is, you probably remember it. But what I'm saying here is we're shifting them from a position of complete ignorance, and that takes time to do. But it can be done very successfully. Dave will tell you, I'm sure at the end of this, that's what he's done extremely successfully over time. So if they ask, what is it? Then this is what I say next. The product is validated by blood spot tests that shows whether someone has the correct omega-3 to 6 balance. We know from over 450,000 tests that 95% of people are out of balance, even those who currently take an omega-3 supplement. I'd like to show you more about that and why it is relevant to your business. And then I ask the same question, you know, can we get together? What's your diary looking like on Tuesday or Wednesday? Very simple, very straightforward, very controlled, no mumbling and stumbling, just getting to the point. And if they say, well, send me some information, whatever, then that's part of the beginning of the process. That is part of what you need to do, what needs to be done when you reach this stage. And this becomes an even bigger demand on time in terms of numbers, because you've got to put more people through the funnel from this approach than you have to from friends and family and those that you do know. So, very quick overview of the way to deal with all this. I will let you all have the slides, as I've said. We will get into more detail about the way this works, and we're going to be doing practical calls on Sunday. And I encourage those of you who can make it to get there, because we're going to show the way to kickstart development. Some of the people we connect with will be no use to us. Some will be. The trick is to make sure we connect with all of them, as many of them as possible, as fast as possible. Because the only difference here is, the only difference between someone who's built a big organization and those of us who haven't yet is the number of people they've connected with. The faster you connect with them, the faster your business will develop. The faster we do this with the company's support, because they're putting all this resource behind it, then the quicker we're going to reach those ranks that start to pay really sensible amounts of money. And I'm excited and I'm energized by this, because, you know, not only have we got a brilliant business proposition on our hands, we've also got a product that really, really drives the money, because it works and it's validated, and it's the thing that's it makes a real difference for us when we're talking to people, because there's the science. It's not a question of someone going in and selling a bottle of omega-3 supplement without any evidence to support the fact that it works, except the perceptual fact that omega-3 is something we need to add to our diets, which is the way things are at the moment. Now we can show that there is a real change that happens. In order to just embellish this a bit further and talk about the next steps as well, I'm going to hand you to Dave now. I have to mute myself in order to hand him over to you.
Thank you, Nigel. And if you could stop sharing your screen, that'd be great. Appreciate it. And great job. Thank you for the time and effort and putting that together. Thank you very much. And we're just going to wrap up now, team. There's a good number of you on here tonight. We've even got people from down under who've got up early to be on the call. And I just want to maybe make a point that the Australian market launched last February, March time. And the reality is it took them 3 to 6 months to create the momentum running the strategy that we announced on the launch strategy the other day. But if you have been following the Australian Zinzino page, or you've been following the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, this month, and we're not even through the month of January, they've broken the second crown. So it's only taken that individual from Stockholm in October. So that's, I've got to count my fingers now. October, November, December, 3.5 months. 3.5 months to go crown because of a strategy, a team that was all on the same page and understanding how to execute it. And what we've been doing for the last 5 to 10 days, from 12 to 15-hour days, is providing the platforms, filling out the calendars, and starting to get corporate to commit to certain times, events, speakers, that over the next 12 to 16, 20 weeks, we're going to be supporting each and every one of you who want to launch and now go after influencers. Again, what I said at the top of the call, you're still going to be looking for your customers and you're still going to be building your business. But if you want to turbocharge your business, you want to start at your level and above now. And if you, just to recap that aspect, we talked about John Maxwell the other day about the law of the lid. You and I are a number, 0 to 10. And I consider myself a 4 or a 5 in confidence, in ability, in social acceptance. I'm a 4 or 5. And the challenge is whether I believe I'm a 4 or 5, if I don't want to come out of my comfort zone, I'm tending to speak to same people of my level, 4s or 3s. Why? 3s make me feel good about me. I feel important. I've got that self-importance. I need my ego fed. I don't want any vulnerability. But you know what? I don't get emotionally disturbed, but my business doesn't grow. The only way my business will grow is if I'm a 4 or 5, I start speaking to 6s and 7s. And that's why the 3-way is so more important. Because when you address the 6s and 7s and 8s, your business will grow faster. The reason being, those influencers will open doors to people that were never on your list. And so raising your lid only happens when you stretch yourself and put yourself in front of others who may potentially positively intimidate you by their success, by their business mindset. But they are the ones you want on your board of directors. And Nigel just painted an incredible analogy that I'm thankful for, that it is timing. Somebody who's just been recently promoted isn't looking. And one of my very best mentors, he calls that the looking zone. If you take a graph, an axis, an X and Y axis, and you draw a bell curve, and you draw 2 parallel lines through that bell curve, you'll have a piece above the top line, and you'll have some below the bottom line. Some have just been promoted. They're at the top of that bell curve. They're not in the looking zone. You've got the guy who's been overlooked. He's below the bell curve. He could be looking, but they're not walking around with, I am looking. You have to ask them. And so today is the start of making that list and coming back to the basics. And because we've got about 5 to 10 days that we're still building, we're still hitting our goals, and we're still bringing in volume, and we're still talking to customers as we are, and business presentation will be on tomorrow night. But we got 10 days before we will launch a influencer 90-day run to the convention with a promotion that you do not want to miss. And to talk about that promotion, there's going to be 2 promotions actually. They're going to be announced on Friday evening. And so I hope this has helped tonight, because there are ways of connecting and speaking with influencers. And what Nigel eloquently and articulately shared with you, one thing I would add to that, and not that Nigel didn't or doesn't, but there's got to be a sense of passion and urgency in our tone without coming across desperate. So take those words and mold them for you, practice, and that's what we're going to be doing on Sunday. Oh, Dave, I don't want to do that. We're going to be role-playing. Why? We're going to position you to be the leadership in the United Kingdom. So going back to the COO in Australia, 10 months on, this month, they've already broken 1 new crown and 6 new directors directors are above diamond. And that he's gloating that they will be the #1 market within the company. Well, I love a challenge, but the strategy that they ran to open Australia is the very same strategy that we showed and shared on the training the other day. And when we ran that strategy, Nigel and Sue were in a different team to me in a previous company. But when we ran that strategy in the United Kingdom, my specific team put in 9,000 distributors in 18 months. And most of those initially who were the initiators like you are today, we had to teach, we had to train, we had to get people on the same page to understand the compound effect of us all doing the same. The ones who came in the second phase, they were just caught up in momentum. And the ones who came in the third stage were actually hitting successful ranks, not even knowing what was happening because we had team momentum. But it's down to us to create that momentum now. And how do we do that? By approaching influencers. So great 3 template scripts, they can be tweaked, they can be molded, but what we can't do is make you pick up the telephone, come and sit with us and do some calling. It's got to come back down to your why. Do you want to be part at the end of May on stage as a diamond and above? Because we've got about 12 weeks to 16 weeks before we have our convention. It's going to be right now provisionally at the end of May. We've got plenty of time, but it starts today. That line in the sand, I'm ready to run, I'm ready to launch myself, and I'm going to run the play as I'm being taught. Now, not everyone's going to want to, that's fine, we've already established that. But for those who do, there is going to be training 3-4 times a week. We've got our calendar that we, one of the scripts that Nigel put on there, the third one, the cold calling, and I'll wrap up with this. In my very first run, like we call it a run, my very first time I was exposed to something like this, I had never done it. I didn't understand it. I was just told in the next 14 days, Dave, you have to make as many contacts as possible and get them in a room because the founder is coming to London. The more people you have in that room, Dave, the faster your launch is going to happen. Well, as an overweight chef, nothing's changed except I'm no longer a chef, but as an overweight chef, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week with a 1-year-old daughter, full-time custody of my baby, I still enrolled 28 people in those 14 days. And I had to use the invitation that Nigel shared with you, which was the third one, into a cold market. And that's what we'll be doing on Sunday. We'll be showing you how you can call into cold markets. Nigel's a practitioner. I ring Nigel. Hey, Nigel, is that Nigel Booth? Yes, it is. Hey, you don't know me. My name is Dave Ives. I got your name off the website. I got your name out of a directory for chiropractors. Now, Nigel, I don't know if I called you at a good time. Now, I'm doing this off the cuff, by the way, folks. Nigel, I don't know if I called you at a good time, but I'm working and aligned myself with a wellness company out of Norway. Nigel gave you some good content there that are bringing their patented products that would be beneficial to your client base. And we'll be holding some informative meetings in Deansgate, Manchester, the Hilton on Tuesday, Thursday, Now, I don't know what your diary looks like, but I would love to send you an invitation. What are you going to get? Yes, no, or what is it? That's what we got to practice. And the more you practice that, doing it together, and sometimes you want to maybe get 2 or 3 people in your team locally. Even if you can't do it locally, get 2 or 3 people on a Zoom and take turns, put the Zoom on and watch each other call. Be there for one another because someone is going to create the momentum in the market. And one of the things Marco wanted me to make sure you all understood is that if we don't, some other leaders from Europe will come and make it happen here. Because once they sniff that there's the company corporately has got a presence here, they're going to come looking for their own leaders and influencers, and because they know the company's going to look after them. So Nigel, what an incredible training. This is going to be an ongoing thing, team. So, you know, don't just go away. Take the content, immerse yourself, commit yourself, make that commitment for the next 90 to 120 days, because there's not one of you that will be disappointed if when you are a diamond making 3,000 to 4,000 euros a month as a baseline to take you into the next 90 days after May. But the next 5-10 days, we have the opportunity to sharpen our skill sets, sharpen our swords, because February the 3rd, we are going to be starting our national coffee meets. So by that time, you want to have already made some calls into people in around Gatwick, in around Bristol, in around Birmingham, Manchester, Edinburgh, Dublin. We're here to, as the COO of Australia said, we're going to lay out everything for you: meetings, support, online conference calls, follow-ups, material. We've got material. We've got the getting started trainings. We've got everything in place. You've just got to get the people in front of us to find the few that we will open doors to the many. So Nigel, thank you again. Friday night, 8 p.m., we're going to be doing a getting started training of how we should get the new influencer getting started and committed to the fast start 30, 60 days. That's going to be the training subject Friday night. And then we're going to close it out with two phenomenal promotions that you want to, one, understand, two, get into your organization as quickly as possible, because the more you have engaged with these two promotions, the more you're going to have at the convention at the end of May. Nigel, thank you again. Good night, everybody. And we'll make this recording available soon as it has downloaded. Good night, everybody.